come back up. And then we go back to number 4 on that committee of the whole closed.
Chair, when the live stream is up, we'll be resuming at section 10 on your open committee of the whole.
Okay. Section 10 or number 10, director's reports.
On the committee of the whole, it is item 10, rise and report from closed, which there's nothing. And then you would adjourn.
Okay.
Got this, Vivian. I believe in you.
I'm looking at the old agenda, obviously.
You're doing okay. We're
All behind you.
Thank you. So I see the live stream is back on again. So at this point, we're at rise and report. Is that right? I'm lost. Oh, man. I have 8 items on my committee of the whole agenda. So we reopen the meeting to the public, which we've just done. Okay.
So item 10 on our open committee of the whole agenda is just the rise and report from the closed, which there is none. And then a motion to adjourn our committee of the whole.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Director Rainbow is motioning to adjourn and Director Mack is putting his hand up enthusiastically to support that. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Okay, that is adjourned. And now I believe we're going back to our agenda from yesterday, from your long meeting. And there were a couple of things that were brought forward from yesterday. So if I go to this 16 recommendations from the Squamish-Lillooet District Committee of the Whole, and that is that staff bring back the recommendations and the updated.
PILT, correct.
Thank
The resolution that with a recommendation to the board with the, to bring back the PILT policy with the
Okay.
actions incorporated into it.
Thank you. To bring back the PILT policy with the actions incorporated. And will we look now at those two?
So sorry to interrupt, Chair. So a motion to accept that recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, and Chris, Director Pettingill and Director Stamare moved and seconded. Anyone in opposition? Carried. All right.
Thank you. And then I believe we were going to go back to item 9.5 from the open.
The draft metro. So 9.5 was put off yesterday to today. The draft Metro 2050 referral for comment. And there were a couple of recommendations that went along with that. Is everyone with me? Welcome the opportunities. The SLRD board welcomes opportunities to advocate, et cetera, et cetera. And transportation planning should consider the recreational transportation. And we certainly made those points. Please go ahead, Director Elliott.
The wording for the first bullet is a little bit confusing because it sounds like we're advocating with the provincial and federal government. So I think it should read opportunity to advocate in collaboration with Metro Vancouver to provincial and federal governments. So just before the motion is put on the floor, or I'll put it on the floor with that amendment.
So moved by Director Elliott with that amendment. And I see, Directors Clark and CAO Helmer both have their hands up. So you go.
Yes, I think it's for the same thing. We do have Ms. Dewar, who prepared the report, who was ready to talk to it as well, if it's okay to admit her.
Yes, we would welcome Ms. Dewar. Please come on in.
Thank you, Chair.
Hello, Claire Dewar, welcome. Just
Thank
looking
you.
at, we're looking at 9.5 on the Metro 2050 plan. And we're just changing perhaps the wording in the first bullet, but did you want to say something about the report before we proceed?
Thank you. Through the chair, I also watched the delegation this morning. I think that was really helpful from Metro 2050, provided a lot of great information and great discussion. And, I think the report, the only things I was maybe going to highlight related to some of the emissions targets, because those have been items that we've been talking about with our board as well. As the affordable housing target, that's something also that we're kind of continually working towards as a regional district. And then there was already good discussion between the board and Metro staff around sort of interregional transportation and options for collaboration there as well. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. I was involved with the Intergovernmental Advisory Committee over the past year and a bit. So thank you.
Excellent, good. Do we have questions or comments from the directors? For Ms. Dewar? Director Pettingill? Yep.
Yeah, just based on the conversation and some of the feedback I had in July, is the reason why we wouldn't also ask for them that infrastructure policy should also include reductions in fossil fuel infrastructure?
And, through the chair, that would be at the discretion of the board. At a staff level, I was focused on sort of where there were opportunities for interjurisdictional or cross-jurisdictional collaboration, and that's sort of a direction that we're receiving from our board, but I'm not sure where their community's at with that. If that's something the board wants to put forward in the comments, though, that by all means.
Okay, is that a motion, Director Pettingill? Do we want to add that as a comment? Is there a seconder? Or
Yeah, I guess I would like to test that. Just adding that comment based on the discussions we had with them today.
So,
Can you
so the
clarify,
motion,
please?
yeah.
So I guess the amendment would be just to the existing motion, add a bullet that infrastructure policy should include reductions in fossil fuel infrastructure.
And Director Elliott, are you seconding that, or I have a question? Yes.
When you say infrastructure, what do you mean?
I think pipes in the ground, like gas infrastructure, primarily, but I think anything that's fossil fuel that's increasing that dependency. And I wouldn't want to get too specific. I think, and stop me if I'm going too far at this point, but what I heard is that they are all generally going that way. They just didn't have explicit policy yet. And so I wanted to encourage them to include that in explicit policy, but it seemed consistent with their general direction from what I heard from their responses today.
But more specifically, through the chair, do you mean infrastructure to homes and businesses for fossil fuels? Are you talking about like heating and cooling, or are you talking?
Yes, in general, and I understand they'll have to work with it and do things over time, and so I didn't want to get too prescriptive about where they start or where they go. So I'm trying to sort of state the direction and so on without being overly specific and overly directive.
I think my concern, though, Director Pettingill, is that if I'm a director of Metro Van and I haven't been part of this conversation, I don't know how to interpret that piece of feedback.
if it's helpful, then maybe I would reword it. Infrastructure policy should include reductions in infrastructure that maintains a dependence on fossil fuels.
Okay, that's clearer. And are you seconding that, Director Elliott? You are. Okay, thank you. Seconded by Director Elliott. Do we have people opposed to that motion? Director Mack, noted. Otherwise, that motion is carried with Director Mack opposing. So that's just on that one bullet, all right? Or are we voting here on all three at this point? I think we're just voting on that one, right? So we still have the other two to look at. And on the first one, Director Elliott wanted to change the wording. The SLRD board welcomes opportunities to advocate in collaboration with, and we were changing that to with Metro Vancouver, right? Otherwise, it's good the way it is.
With Metro Vancouver to provincial and federal
To
government.
the provincial and federal government, yes.
Thank you. Through the chair, that was the intention. So thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, so with that amendment, I believe Director Elliott moved that, seconded by Director Rainbow. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. And then we'll look at the third one. Transportation planning should consider the recreational transit, etc. Director Rainbow is moving that one. I will certainly happily second that one. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Thank you. And Director Pettingill, yes.
Just a question. There was some feedback on the TransLink conversation about, I thought I heard whether or not they were paying enough attention to the need to move away from single occupancy vehicles. And they sort of said, you know, maybe they need to massage the language and so on and so forth. And so I guess it's a question to the room if we want to provide, sorry, I'm mixing up the discussions. Take that back. Pardon me. I'm thinking the TransLink one.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. But you don't want to, so you don't want to add something here? No. Okay. So with that, are we done with that item? Can we say thank you very much, Ms. Dewar? I think you're free to go. The next thing we have to do, brought forward from yesterday, is hear from Mandy Rousseau about her NDIT business liaison position, which I'm really looking forward to. Is Mandy in the waiting room?
Yes, Chair, she is, as well as
Okay.
Patricia Westerholm. I'll admit them
Oh,
both.
good. All right. And I think Kim came and went during that time. Hello, goodbye, Kim. Okay. Welcome, Patricia Westerholm and Mandy Rousseau. And just please go ahead with your presentation. And thank you for putting off to today what we could have done yesterday.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Patricia Westerholm, the Communications and Engagement Manager with the SLRD. Today, I am here with the SLRD's Regional Business Liaison, Mandy Rousseau, to provide the board with an update on the Regional Business Liaison program. In your agenda package, you also do have an information report that provides the details of this on the background of this program, along with a more detailed summary of the work that has been done to date, some of the key findings, and our planned next steps. In addition to that report, we have prepared a PowerPoint presentation today that is going to highlight some of that information as well, and just walk you through a little bit of the background, the timeline, some of the key findings that Mandy has discovered in her work, and then how we're planning to move forward. So I am just going to speak to the first couple of slides, and then I will hand it over to Mandy, who will walk you through the bulk of the presentation. I think next slide, please, Philippa. Perfect. So this is just a little bit of an explanation as to some of the background around the program. The Regional Business Liaison is a one-year term position funded by a grant from the province of BC through the Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development, and it is administered by Northern Development Initiatives Trust. The program was developed really in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the goal to have local representatives in place in community who can help businesses and organizations navigate the various provincial and national pandemic recovery programs that have been made available. So initially, you may recall when some of these programs were first announced at the early onset of the pandemic, there was a lot of information coming out, sometimes very quickly. Often some of that information was changing day to day as the situation unfolded and new programs were being announced. My sense is that there was a general, in that flurry of information early on, it was sometimes challenging for small businesses in particular, and also nonprofit organizations to really start that process of navigating the programs and to really understand all of the programs that were being announced and what was available and how they might fit into that equation, and then how to access some of those programs. So the regional business liaisons were really put into place to help connect the dots with that work. So for us so far, the work has really been to understand the programs that are out there, and then what the needs are in the communities, and be able to match the two. I do think it's important to note here that we have some unique differences between the SLRD's regional business liaison position and the others in the province, in that most of the regional business liaisons do work out of the northern part of the province and mainly work under the umbrella of community futures organizations. So definitely a little bit of new territory for us, and also for NDIT as well. We've also learned that coming into this process, that many of the regional business liaisons that are in place have been so for some time. And we're actually nearing the end of their contracts, while we were really just kind of getting into ours. So some of the regional business liaisons have been in place since really early on in this process, as I said, and when the programs were first being announced. So what we're finding is that we are coming into it a bit later, and with many of the programs wrapping up or having ended already. So it's really forced us to think a little bit outside the box in terms of being able to find resources for businesses and organizations. But Mandy will speak to that in a bit more detail in a few further slides in. So next slide, please. Thank you. So just in terms of the timeline, we've talked a little bit about the background of the program. And for the timeline, if we just go back to just a few months ago, to the beginning of the year, in February, we were invited to apply for the Rural Business Recovery Business Liaison Program. And as I noted with the last slide, it is a bit of new territory for us, and it was unique in that we have an existing relationship, as you know, with Northern Development Initiatives Trust, which has supported us with grant funding for projects in electoral areas A and B in the past, with those two areas falling within NDIT's service area. But with this program, it was the first time that we were applying to receive funding from NDIT for a program that serves the entire SLRD region. So a little bit different for us and a little bit different for them as well. We submitted our application with letters of support from the District of Squamish, the Lillooet Nation, Pemberton and District Chamber of Commerce, and the Bridge River Valley Community Association. and really want to acknowledge how much we appreciate that support and how important that was to our application. It was really key to be able to show NDIT the scope of the region and the importance of tackling this from a regional perspective, and to be able to show through those letters of support that communities and partners agreed with us that it made sense for the SLRD to pursue this program. In March, we were notified that our application had been successful, which was very exciting news. And from there, we moved really quickly into the recruitment process. And after several weeks, we're able to welcome a longtime local resident, Mandy Rousseau, to the role of Regional Business Liaison. And so Mandy, officially joined the SLRD as the Regional Business Liaison in June. And since that time has really hit the ground running, virtually, of course, for the most part. She's been extremely busy doing a lot of research, finding out about those programs that are still in place and any new programs being developed and announced. And then, as I mentioned, really looking into other opportunities for businesses and nonprofit organizations, First Nations communities and the like, to access some pandemic recovery support. So really spending a lot of time making those connections, really understanding what the need is and then what's available and how to connect them. And then we've just submitted our first interim report to NDIT. And we have about 7 months left on our contract with lots of really great work ahead of us, lots of plans coming along. And Mandy is going to walk through the rest of the presentation that will speak to that in more detail. And if you have any questions, please feel free to save those up for the end, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Mandy Rousseau. I'm the Regional Business Liaison for the SLRD. It's very nice to be able to join you today. And this is my first time on YouTube, so I'm very excited about that. As Patricia noted, I'm going to share with you some highlights of the work that has been done to date and what we'll be doing moving forward. So next slide, please, Pip. As Patricia noted, considering I started when many of the federal and provincial programs were wrapping up or had been oversubscribed, a lot of my time has been spent seeking other opportunities to fit our region's economic needs. So I've paired my deep dive on pandemic recovery research with informational interviews conducted through my first 30 days. These included my speaking with the SLRD's active chambers of commerce, tourism associations, nonprofit networks, municipal economic development offices, and band offices to ask questions and share that I was a resource available to them and their respective business and nonprofit communities. In the absence of in-person meetings and dedicated communication channels, I shared a suggested post and newsletter contribution for our partners to share with their networks, which really helped me reach a broader audience. This connected me directly to businesses who I in turn connected with programs at Community Futures, accessing business loans from the banks, and accessing and applying for grants offered through the public and private sectors. Through my outreach to our Indigenous neighbors, I learned that succession planning and capacity building in community are areas of importance. So I shared applicable resources through Work BC, Indigenous Skills and Employment Training, and the YWCA. Some communities have also expressed need for support on capital projects, which I was able to research and forward their way. Next slide, please. This slide shows some of the opportunities that we've been able to share, either directly or through our website and social media. A thorough list is included in the board package that I broke down by category to help make it more reader-friendly. Of course, some of these resources do support multiple areas, and I'm happy to speak to any questions you may have about the list. We will continue to source opportunities, and as they arise, post them on our website and Facebook, but also share them directly with the various groups and businesses that are eligible. Next slide, please. While most of our work has centered around research and outreach, we have been able to directly assist a number of organizations and businesses. So I've connected with 33 organizations and 26 businesses. This represents the amount of businesses and organizations we have connected with grants and either walked through any questions they may have, reviewed their grant application, or connected them with a grant writer. Next slide, please. When the RBL program was launched in the SLRD, we implemented the first phase of our communications plan for the program. This involved distribution of the news release announcing the program and building the regional business liaison section of the website, which is also featured on the front page of the spotlight on the right-hand side. Since that time, we've been adding to the resources listed and have built a robust social media campaign to promote the regional business liaison program overall, to make sure communities are aware of my presence and that I'm here to help them, and then to promote the specific programs as they become available. Next slide, please. This slide shows some of the graphics that the communications and engagement team has created for use in our social media channels and a couple of the opportunities that we've shared. So our goal with the graphic is to build a consistent look with our brand colors, but not necessarily our usual approach. So the yellow isn't typically our main color, but it is within our branded colors. And we wanted people to recognize this as an RBL graphic whenever they see it. Next slide, please. This slide shows some of the opportunities that we've shared through our social media, and these are direct links to these third-party platforms. So the difference between seeing the yellow graphic and this one is just whether it's going through the SLRD page or direct out. Next slide, please. So part of our outreach has been to connect with various groups that can help extend our reach. So in addition to messaging through our own channels, we've been featured on external Facebook pages and newsletters. Some of those are shown here. And we really appreciate the support that our member municipalities and key organizations that are helping to inform their communities of the RBL position, and that we're here to help. Next slide, please. We continue to see strong support and engagement, and our social media posts have seen a combined reach of nearly 5,000 and more than 71 engagements. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share some of the key findings with you today that I've heard through my time so far. Businesses and organizations have challenges accessing information or are overwhelmed by the amount of information out there. Businesses are recovering, but those that still need financial aid don't want to take on more debt. The greatest challenge for businesses and nonprofits today is labor, so lack thereof, and burnout for the staff still employed. There's an increasing demand for mental health support. Nonprofit organizations have a lack of funding to continue programs that are supporting community, such as mental health support programming. Grants that are currently available focus on sustainability projects or are working towards diversity, equality, and inclusivity. The pivot to virtual offerings has helped local business develop communities around their brands. So examples have been exclusive to-go meals offered by restaurants. Florists have moved to a membership base, pivoting away from events when those were not on offer. And coffee shops moved to doing roasted bean deliveries, and other institutions moved to artist talks and craft workshops. Overall, online shopping and food ordering has increased the geographic exposure for our local businesses. So that's one of the good news pieces of my key findings. Next slide, please. So in terms of the RBL position, we've just submitted our first interim report to NDIT, as Patricia mentioned. And as we move forward, we will continue to collaborate with other regional business liaisons working out of the northern part of the province to share insights and experience and tools. We will also continue, of course, to collaborate with member municipalities and the various economic development organizations servicing various communities in the region, including the Chambers of Commerce and Community Futures. We will continue to research and share any funding or other opportunities that become available. We're working to build a database of electoral area businesses so that we can target them directly as opportunities arise. We are investigating locations for an in-person presence at various locations throughout the SLRD, pandemic recovery permitting, of course. So the example being my presence monthly at the hub in Lillooet. And in December, we'll be implementing phase 2 of our communications plan, which involves identifying and pursuing both traditional and non-traditional media opportunities to help raise awareness of the program to reach those who may still need my support. Next slide, please. So thank you very much. I also wanted to add an anecdote that the SLRD is a great place to work, and I'm very appreciative to be a part of this team. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
You're muted, Chair.
Thanks. Thank you very much, both of you. And we've certainly appreciated your outreach and work up here in Area B and Lillooet with the hub and the chamber and Lillooet Agriculture and Food and so forth. Well done. I'm glad you still got some more months with us now, because you've done a good job connecting for sure. Questions and comments from the directors? Director Elliott?
Thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering if you're in touch with your colleagues in the other areas around the province, and also where do these findings go? So if you're all finding similar things in the regions around the province, how do we provide this feedback to our provincial and federal colleagues so that they can maybe do something about them?
Through the chair, thank you very much for your question. The RBLs have a monthly meeting where we share our findings and discuss what is going on. NDIT has presence at the meetings, so we've been able to share with them our findings, which in hopes they can also communicate up the chain to the province, who's their funder. Like the funding for my position is coming through NDIT, which originated from the province of BC. So I think that that's one avenue. And I've also taken the opportunity to reach out to Patrick Weiler and share these findings with him in a hope that this will also raise awareness, in particular for our nonprofit organizations that are carrying the brunt of mental health supports. And that they've been told that their fundings have been oversubscribed and are limited going forward into 2022.
Director Forsyth?
Thanks for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. Is this mostly for nonprofits or is it for small business as well?
Through the chair, this is for businesses and nonprofits. So businesses, organizations, and associations, anybody that may need support accessing and identifying resources. So whether it's a loan, whether it's a grant, for small businesses who are trying to address labor issues or feeling not necessarily address, but feeling the pain points of our labor crunch, reminding them about the advocacy that's being taken on by their local chamber, and that is an avenue for them, things like that. I hope that answers.
Yeah. Do you have metrics on the uptake and who, has it been small business been the largest user of your services, or is it nonprofits? And then metrics following that on the amounts received by those businesses, or does it end with your connection to the service?
Through the chair, that's a good point. I do anecdotally track for my own purposes and then reporting back to NDIT. Ultimately, I'm acting as a conduit for these individuals, so I'm not necessarily the grant writer. So while I'm supporting businesses and nonprofits in accessing these, their success is not reported back to me in how much money they're acquiring. And I would
Right.
say right now I am seeing, I would say a balance, a 50-50 balance between organizations and businesses, because I've supported, I said 33 organizations and 26 businesses.
Okay, that makes sense. And is it, this is my last question. Do you have a breakdown of where they come from in the SLRD? Is it in the north? Is it here in Whistler, Pemberton?
Through the chair, I do. And I would say that it's a healthy mix throughout the region. So while the funding has come to us via NDIT with a focus on the northern part of the SLRD, I have been supporting a number of businesses in the south.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions? Comments? Okay. With that, I thank you very much for your presentation and your good work. And we need a motion to accept the report. Thank you, Director Demare, seconded by Director Wiebe. And anyone opposed? Motion carried. Director Forsyth, your hand's still up? Is that that's just a leftover? Okay. All right. Then that motion is carried and that report is received. It's great work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I can go.
You may go. Well done, Mandy.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Chair. We are at item 17 in the open board agenda to go into closed, please.
So we are going to go into closed again for the
So motion to go into closed.
a motion
Thank
to go
you.
into close, please. Moved by Director Demare, seconded by Director Wiebe.